Welcome everyone to edTrends. I'm Jerry Rivera Wilson. I am the Director of Professional Development and Continuing Education here at the School of Education at the University of Albany. If you would like to catch the rerun of our previous videos, please visit atlas.edu or follow the YouTube channel for the School of Education at the University of Albany. To do a warm greeting from the School of Education, Dr. Virginia Goatley, Dean of the School of Education and Professor of the Department of Literacy, Teaching and Learning. Jenny?
Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to welcome you to this edTrends conversation about artificial intelligence. AI Plus is UAlbany's holistic approach to integrating teaching and learning about AI across our academic and research programs to ensure every graduate is prepared to live and work in a world radically changed by technology in our coming decades. AI Plus is not just a program within the university, it's an institution-wide recognition of AI is important to all that we do across many disciplines. We're very happy to have experts in AI within our School of Education. Our School of Education is a leading institution in preparation of educators, leaders, policymakers, mental health practitioners. For the 8th straight year, we're ranked in the top 10 for the U.S. World News Report for our online graduate education programs, currently ranked number 4 overall. Our faculty are leaders in the field, both nationally and globally. We have expertise in areas such as early literacy, STEM, higher education, counseling. As a New York site for the Master's Teacher Program, faculty and students are actively engaged in conversation about STEM, including AI. And I am delighted today to have this presentation featuring some of our faculty, including Jason Vickers, Hazel Bay, and Jonathan Foster, as we think through issues around AI and our AI Plus initiatives. And a warm welcome to our panel members as well. So let's get the conversation started.
Today's moderator is going to be Dr. Hazel Bay, she is an assistant professor in the Department of Educational Theory and Practice here at the School of Education. She joined the University of Albany faculty in 2023. Her research focuses on how students learn by solving complex problems and how technology can support the learning process. Specifically, she is interested in how teachers can play a central role in supporting students while utilizing emerging educational technology such as AI. Currently, she is engaged in 2 major research projects, game-based learning and how AI impacts students' lives and the ethical considerations surrounding AI. Our panelists today.
Thank you, panelists, for joining us today. Ryan Franson will be joining us shortly. In the meantime, please introduce yourself, starting with Dr. Jonathan Foster. Thank you.
So Jonathan, will you kick off and introduce yourself, and then we'll jump to Ryan.
Sure. Hi, everyone. So I'm Jonathan Foster. I'm here with the faculty in the School of Education here at UAlbany. So my background is in math education. So I look at a lot of classrooms interactions in the classroom and math. And then I've also been looking at AI integration on the teacher end. So how can teachers use AI tools and applications? Ryan? I think you're muted, Ryan.
Oh, thank you. Hi, guys. I'm Ryan Franson. I'm a computer science teacher in Bountiful, Utah. And I lead a cohort of about 15 AI power users here in my school. And we're currently exploring all ways that we can use AI in the classroom across all departments and curriculums. I'm also an educational consultant for SkillStruck, which is an AI ed tech company, to make sure everything that they build is as powerful as possible for teachers.
I'm Amanda Moore. I'm the District Innovation Coach for Center Grove Community Schools in Indiana. I help support teachers with STEM and computer science. I'm a former elementary teacher where I integrated technology, including artificial intelligence, in my classroom.
And I'm Jason Vickers. I'm a lecturer too in the Department of Educational Theory and Practice at the University at Albany. I'm a former classroom teacher of 15 years where I taught special education grades K through 12, pretty much prior to advanced technology. Or when it was coming into the school systems. Now I teach master's level students how to integrate technology into the classroom, how to create online learning, the theories of online learning, and social issues within education.
Okay, I think it's my turn. Hi, I'm again. Hi, this is Hazel. I'm going to moderate this great panelist today. So before we begin, we are trying to learn all, this great and fun AI topics together. So don't hesitate to ask any questions, or if you want to share any good resources, please use the chat, or we can even include you later in the discussion. So let's start with the first question. So what are the opportunities of integrating AI topics or AI literacy into your classroom? So this is something that we touched on a little bit in the last webinar. So I'm gonna ask Jonathan to summarize what we kind of left off, and then we'll start from there.
Thank you, Hazel. I'm happy to give a brief summary. So in the last session, I put it in the chat, and I'll put it again, just so folks that are still coming in. Really, we focused on three things. So the big idea is, what is AI? We talked about some misconceptions around AI, what are its various roles in industry, but also its potential for education. And then another topic we talked about is the importance of AI literacy. So what are the skills and knowledge that students will need today and tomorrow in order to critically understand and use and evaluate AI systems and tools? And then the last topic that we talked about was, how is AI transforming education today? So we talked through a few examples in that session, but really in this session, we're going to explore that in more depth. And I think I'm going to turn to Amanda, because I know she's been working on integrating AI topics into the classroom.
Yeah, if you haven't seen session one, I highly recommend taking a listen or a watch. Part of the discussion in session one really focused on the need for a multidisciplinary approach for integrating AI topics or AI literacy, and I can't emphasize that enough. AI isn't just a computer science topic. It is an every subject topic, because in reality, it's really an every industry topic. And AI is really so much more than just natural language processing, or in other words, we can do a lot more than ChatGPT, which is really, I feel like, the focus of a lot of what people are talking about right now. Later on, I'll share how I've been able to use AI with some young students in some exciting real world ways. But some real practical ways that elementary and secondary teachers can incorporate AI with their students. Very simply, elementary teachers, I know that reading is such a major focus. Incorporating some reading articles about what AI is and how it's being used in industry today, there are some really great advancements happening in medical and ecological ways and industries. And that could really spark some really great topics of discussion for your students. And it's great nonfiction reading. So that's a really great way to integrate for elementary. For secondary teachers, you could begin with discussions about AI, as simple as bell ringer activities. There is a nonprofit organization called the AI Education Project. They have some really great free resources. One is called AI Snapshots, and that's just a collection of 180 discussion topics and almost like bell ringer activities for every subject area, and it's divided and organized by subject area. So whether you are technologically savvy or not, you can use that free resource to begin discussions related to your content area. And I'll put that link in the chat for you so that you can use that resource. But those are a couple really practical ways that you can begin to incorporate AI topics and AI literacy into your subject.
Great, but what if? So let's talk about the number 2 question. So how can educators with limited technical expertise begin incorporating AI tools or these topics into their lesson plans? Can anyone, Ryan, can you jump in and talk about this? Unmute, please.
Sorry, there we go. I'd love to jump in. I think a big thing is just to get out there and play with it. I kind of think about the internet. I never really went to any lessons on the internet. I didn't take a class on the internet, but I just started playing with it and doing stuff that worked for me on my end, and then started playing with more practical approaches for school or for business and stuff like that. So I think just pick an AI tool. And I think the thing out there is there's a million and one tools. I follow a lot of Facebook groups and everyone's always sharing all these tools. But the vast majority of them, you're actually just paying or having someone use ChatGPT on your behalf or using Claude on your behalf. So I would just start with one of the big ones like Claude, ChatGPT, Gemini, something like that. And then just use it for your personal life. Have it come up with movie recommendations for you. Have it help you figure out how to respond to an email. Don't think too hard about it and just play with it. And as you get a hang of how it works, you'll start on your own seeing things that you can do. And I know at Skillstruck, where I help out, I actually just wrote a 30-day zero to hero AI guide. And all it was activities for people to play with to see how it works in their real life and see how it works for them. So I think demystify it and don't think too hard. Just start with what are some funny ways? Can you have it write a diet plan for you? Can you give you some ideas for dinner or some workout suggestions, some movie suggestions? And as you get used to it, it gets better and better from there.
Great. Amanda, do you have anything to add?
Sure. If you aren't really feeling super confident in trying something new, you can also look at the apps and tools that you're already familiar with and just take a close look, because you might be surprised that a lot of the tools that you're already using have AI features already embedded in them. And you can just simply ask Google about the tools that you're using, and if they have AI features, you might be surprised. Maybe your students are already using tools like Adobe Express or Canva. They have some really advanced, I think, tools in there. So Adobe Express allows students and teachers to create digital projects. And they have some built-in AI tools where just by typing a prompt, you can have project templates, you can create images, you can create some really interesting text. Or in Canva, you can create images just with a text prompt. So some of the tools that you're already using, you might be surprised it already has AI embedded in it. You just have to look.
That's a great idea. AI versus not AI, right? We just don't know this yet, right? So Jonathan, is there anything you want to add or?
Yeah, one thought I would add on too, I think there's oftentimes like a misconception, like I have to have some sort of coding experience to get started. And really, there's a lot of tools out there that you don't need sort of a coding background to get started. So you may be surprised. So one tool that we talked about last time in the first session was Magic School. That's a great maybe first step teacher-facing tool to get started with, especially with the large language model like ChatGPT. So don't be afraid to get started. And I will even say those tools that need a little bit of coding, like working with undergraduate students, they're always surprised by like how short the code actually is. And so the hurdle maybe really is not as big as you think. So I would agree with Ryan, take that advice, take that initial leap, try some things out. You may be surprised.
Great, thank you. But then if, we are all using these amazing AI tools, number 3 question, what role will human educators, we as teachers, will play in the future of AI-driven learning? What do you think? Ryan, let's start with you.
Yeah, a phrase that I use a lot in my cohort and in my district when I train is AI is not going to take your job, but someone who knows how to use AI will have a huge advantage. And so what we're finding as we use AI in my building is that AI is multiplying our efforts. It's not replacing us, it's giving us a superpower. So as far as human educators, I think it's important to know that we're not going to get replaced, but it's going to give us tools and skills that we've always wanted. When I use AI in the classroom, I'm not exaggerating when I say it's cut my workflow in half. And now I have more time to spend with my IEP kids or my ELL kids. I have time to do all those things I always wanted to do as a teacher that I just don't have time for. And I'm able to give my kids some experiences that are far above and beyond anything that I could have done before. So it's not going to replace you. And I think as teachers, I do a lot of trainings around Utah. And a lot of teachers are afraid that, like, I don't want to touch it. I hate AI. I can say actively right now, there's probably 10 teachers in my building that hate me because I teach kids to use AI. But even those teachers, when they start seeing how I'm using AI and I'm training them to use it better in their classroom, they're like, I still hate AI, but I want to do this because that will get me home on time. That will help me do what I want to do. That will let me create this experience I've always wanted for my students. So there's always going to be a place for us because we need to be in the driver's seat. And the more we can use AI and be in the driver's seat, the more you'll be empowered, not replaced.
Great. I love that driver's seat. Jason, do you want to add anything?
Sure. I think it's important to remember that teachers aren't going to be gatekeepers of AI because students are going to be using AI anyway. They're going to go home, they're going to interface with an Alexa, they're going to interface with Claude or ChatGPT or Chat for Schools. They're going to be doing a lot of things with AI that we can't control. So the role that the educators need to play is that we need to be able to create safe spaces where students can practice the use of AI. We need to teach AI safety. We need to teach AI ethics. We need to teach about biases in AI. And we also need to teach good prompt crafting, how to write good prompts for the generative chatbots, because the better your prompt craft is, the more the response is going to match what you're looking for. And we need to teach the students how to have dialogic exchanges with these chatbots, because essentially that's where you make progress, is you have conversations with the chatbot like ChatGPT, but the students aren't going to know how to do that automatically. Educators are going to be the people who are going to have to sit down and help students realize the power of AI.
Yeah, great. Thank you. So let's talk about some specific examples of some successful AI implementation stories in your own classroom. So Amanda, do you want to share that story with us?
I would love to. I was fortunate enough to work on a project called Primary AI. And on this project, I got to co-develop and implement some really neat curriculum. And this was with Indiana University and also the National Science Foundation. And this curriculum is project-based and it's also game-based. It integrates both computer science and artificial intelligence and science curriculum. And basically, students learn about the declining population of the yellow-eyed penguin, so super cute penguins on the coast of New Zealand. And of course, their population is declining. And so through a series of lessons throughout this unit, students are learning about artificial intelligence. They're learning about topics like machine learning and computer vision. And then through playing a game, students begin to learn in this game-based environment how to program this cute little AI penguin robot to go and collect scientific data about this group of penguins. And as it collects data, students are realizing they can use AI to start to make inferences, collect data, and make a scientific difference in the world, which is really great. And after they do this in this game-based scenario, then they get to transfer what they've learned into their local community also, which is really great. not with penguins, but in their local area. And what I love most about this unit is that students get to begin to demystify kind of the magic of what AI is. They get to see how it works. And they don't get to just be users of AI tools. They get to believe that they can create with AI, that they can control some AI, and that they can make a difference in the world with using AI tools, which is really powerful for 3rd through 5th grade students, because that's who the curriculum was intended for and who did this. And this wasn't created for high achieving students. This wasn't created for an after school program or for a high ability program. This was created for a general class. And so my class, which was an inclusion classroom, had this wonderful group of diverse students participate and become incredibly excited about the difference they can make, not only in this virtual environment, but also right there in their own community. I'll also add a link in the chat if you're interested in more information about this curriculum or this project. But that's an example of how AI can be used in rich contexts beyond the use of a simple tool, but in a way to help students kind of envision how they can use AI to change the world.
Great, thank you. Ryan, I'm sure you have a lot of stories too, so can you share?
Yeah, I could talk for hours on this, but I'll keep it short. If you haven't seen, Saul Khan from Khan Academy has an incredible TED Talk from last April on AI and education. That should be required watching for anyone working in schools. But in that, he presents what we call the Two Sigma problem from Daniel Bloom. Bloom talked about they did research to see if they could shift the bell curve over to improve outcomes for students. And they found that they could shift the bell curve over 2 standard deviations by providing one-to-one tutoring for students, which obviously that was done in the 80s. And the only way to do that would be to hire a ton of tutors, which is impossible. But the argument that Saul Khan makes, and what I'm finding at my school and my district, is that we can now address the Two Sigma problem by creating personalized AI tutors for our students. And we can help teachers out by creating personalized AI teaching assistants. So a couple of examples in my district, we found 4 ways that we've been using AI recently. Number 1 is to create customized student learning experiences. So for example, in my classroom today, I have a video game class and my kids have to write a professional level video game pitch. And to get them ready for that, I made an AI tutor tool, and my kids actually wrote a 2-paragraph pitch and put it in there. And then they acted like Shark Tank, and the AI took on a bunch of different personas and challenged their ideas and asked them questions and follow-up questions, and it gave them a grade. And so that, hey, this is a B minus, and then 3 different personas gave it feedback, and then my kids would take that feedback and rewrite, and then they would resubmit, and it would go back and forth and iterate that process until they got an A. And so that is the type of student experience that we're creating today. We also made one today that does a Socratic seminar. If you ever do Socratic seminars in your class, you know, if a kid misses it, it's impossible to make up on their own. So we actually made an AI that takes on different personas and holds a Socratic seminar and debates the student and does all that. And then we as teachers actually get to see the process. We get to see not only their final product, which is what all of education's been, but I get to pull up the hood and see how they react to feedback, see how they answer questions, and see that whole entire process, which really plays into John Hattie's visible learning. The second thing we're doing is creating student resources. So for my coding students, I've actually made a Socratic tutor that helps them with code. So if they put in code, it only asks them questions and helps them solve the problem in their code without ever showing them a single line of code. And we can do the same thing with math and history and stuff like that. But the idea being that we have an interactive experience that coaches the kid rather than it's giving them an answer. And then we have teachers that have made sub-plans. An English teacher in my building was gone for a day, and her class was supposed to read a book called The Long Way Down. And while she was gone, she made a customized AI experience where the students actually held a book club with the AI about their book. And then it gave them writing prompts and challenges and activities to do and interact with to talk about that book. And when she came back, she could actually read that chat log and see how the kids interacted. So there are a lot of great ways we can use it to create student experiences, to create student tools. And then we also find that we're having a really good use of teacher tools. like helping write letters of recommendation, respond to emails. And the beauty of that is the hard thing is if you use GPT and stuff like that, the only way you can share those with students is to have a GPT-4 account, which doesn't always meet data privacy laws for most states. Or you can't share it with other teachers unless they pay $20 a month for that. So that's why we at Skillstruck make tools that help people to be able to share it within their classroom without compromising data privacy, and to make these actual assignments in Canvas and other LMS models. So you can actually assign a tutor interaction and then see the chat log as their assignment. So you can actually read through it and see how it goes. So really the possibilities are endless. And the more teachers that play with it, we're finding that really we think this is what AI can do, but really it's a lot more broader. And the more people that play with it, the more use cases we find.
Perfect. Thank you. Jonathan, do you want to add anything?
I would add, we've been thinking about using AI for the purpose of students, but a lot of my work that I've been doing with, I'm working with a developer called edThena. So the same way that we can personalize learning for students, we can also personalize it for teachers as well. So what edThena does is it's really a video-based teacher coaching platform. And so really the only interaction is between the teacher and an AI coach. So it's that personalized feedback about, what's happening in the learning environment. What do you think you'll do next? How would you plan for instruction differently next time? And so what I'm doing is sort of supporting that role is providing some learning analytics to support the video analysis. So teachers don't have a lot of time to scroll through the entire lesson, but maybe we can point out certain points that may be of high interest. Here's where you had high student engagement. What do you think about this? What were students doing? What were you doing? So not only can AI personalize the student learning experience, but I think teachers as well.
Yes, great example. Okay, so we talked a lot about these great tools and experiences, but let's go to number 5. What resources are available to educators who want to learn more about using AI responsibly in their classrooms? What are the top 3 to 5? I know there are so many tools, but yeah, technologies with the most immediate real-world application you want to recommend. Let's start with Jason. Do you have something that you can recommend?
Well, I think the first place that people should go is to AI4K12.org. That gives you the national standards on AI, and it gives you a K through 12 AI guidelines and gives you resources. And I placed that link in the chat. It's an excellent resource for you to go to. In terms of the top 5 things to use, that's really difficult because there are so many good applications out there. Skillstruck makes good applications. Chat for Schools by Skillstruck is excellent. I know in Albany, Questar 3 BOCES has a license for Chat for Schools, so the teachers can have that. It's a more protective environment than using ChatGPT or Claude or Bing AI or Gemini. Another good one is, one of my favorites for writing would be Playlab's Project Tony. That's a writing tutor where you can go in and you can just start having a conversation from the ground up. Like you can say, this is what I'm interested in writing about, and it will respond with the prompt. You can do an outline, you can do rough drafts on it. It will give you feedback and allow you to improve. So that's one of the more specialized pieces of software out there. Magic School is good. Another good thing for creating an entire class is Almanac, which is also used for post-secondary schools. It's not just limited to K through 12. You can create a master's level course using Almanac. Photomath, which math teachers seem to hate, is a great AI. They hated it because they thought students were getting answers from that. But you have to turn that around and show how Photomath, the process Photomath uses to arrive at the answers. And so it can be used as a personal tutor. And the last one that I'd like to mention, and this was from Sal Khan's TED Talks, is Khanmigo. That's one of his new, from Khan Academy. It's his new AI that you can have conversations about all types of things related to Conmigo. So those are more than 5, but there are so many good things out there. It's
Yeah,
hard to limit
like
it.
more than 10 at this point. Thank
I
you,
know, I
Jason.
know.
But Ryan, is there something that you really absolutely want to share?
Yeah, and I think this part of the discussion, it's always hard. I don't know about anyone else, but I follow a lot of the teacher Facebook groups for AI.
Mhm.
And they're pretty hilarious sometimes, but I think it's really important to understand. I go to a few educational tech conferences. Is I think we're kind of reaching the snake oil business era of AI, or like the dot-com bubble. Everywhere you go, you're finding a million and one free or cheap AI resources, and you're finding all kinds of stuff out there. And these teacher groups, every day I go on, there's a new one being pitched that I've never heard of before. And I think it's really important that we be as careful as possible with these teacher tools. Even just last week, there were some teacher tools being pushed that people were downloading, and then it was malware that was stealing people's passwords and personal information. But we have to vet these things so carefully. And if it's a free tool, you always have to ask yourself, I don't know what the product I'm paying for is, then I am the product. So there have been some tools out there that I've seen that are selling teacher data, and heaven forbid you get all your kids logged on with one of these tools and you're selling your student data. So I think there is a flood of teacher tools right now, and so it's on us as educators to really vet these. And I know my district has a whole entire we have a whole entire department that we have to submit software that we want to use, and they vet it all for us. And there's been quite a few that we thought were fine that got denied for lots of reasons. So I think it's important to be careful. But the ones that do their homework, the ones I care about the most, I started off using ChatGPT, and that's great. But you have to understand that data privacy, kids have to usually provide a phone number and an email to get on, and that causes lots of issues. Gemini, I think, is only for 18 plus or 16 plus. Claude has some stuff. So a lot of teachers are putting their kids in these programs that don't meet data privacy. But SkillStruck, obviously, I'm a consultant for them. But before I even became a consultant for them, I love them because they take data privacy very seriously. They actually put a filter between the kids and OpenAI and make sure that no personal information gets through. You can make accounts using single sign-ons like Clever or Microsoft, which reduces the need for kids to provide personal information, and it filters information going back. So SkillStruck their chat for schools tool is wonderful. It keeps a log of all the kids' chats. I can lock and unlock the kids' chat interactions. So if I'm doing a test or a project, I can say only use this tutor that I made. Don't have this, or we're taking a test, I'll turn it all off. I can set the reading level. So if there's a kid with an IEP and that reads at the 3rd grade level, I can actually have I can set it so the AI interacts with them at a 3rd grade level, or I can keep it their zone of proximal development. And I can make these personalized tools. I started making really cool personalized tutors in ChatGPT, but I had no way of sharing with my students. But Skillstruck gave me that ability to make these awesome tutors and put it in the hands of my kids and integrate it with Canvas so I can actually make it an assignment and get their history and use that as an assignment. So for me, I love Skillstruck just because it protects my students. And I think that's a huge discussion that we need to have, especially with so many tools flooding the market. But also, I'm a big proponent of a lot of tools just use ChatGPT, Gemini, or Claude for you. So I'm the type of person, I just want to get to the base of it. So I started using those tools because I wanted to know what I was making. And I like the fact that I can make my own tools with Skillstruck and GPT, because if it doesn't work, I can change it and I can make it work how I want rather than using someone else's tool and hoping it works.
Great, great. That's a great. So I think that's a great segue to the next topic. And then, okay, so before we move on to the ethical considerations part, so, this is all really great, but how can we encourage open dialogue and collaboration among teachers, AI developers, and policymakers to shape the future of AI in education so we can use responsibly and also efficiently? So let's start with Jonathan. Well, actually, Amanda, educators. So how do you open this dialogue to your teachers?
I think as teachers, we just have to step into the fray, quite honestly. So I would start by saying, step in somewhere. I know it can seem overwhelming, especially like we were just hearing, there are so many tools, there are so many articles. It's hard to know where to start, but just start somewhere and step into the conversation. Just today, I attended a coworker's She called it the AI campground, and it was fantastic. Her name is Sarah Wilking, and she put on a professional development at her high school where teachers could come and just have conversations about AI,
Mm.
ask questions, and use one another as a resource. Um, they could look at tools together and just have conversations. And I thought that was such a powerful way to do just this, use each other as resources and start the conversation. So even if you're not sure what to do something. Try a tool, reach out to someone, but do something. Because whether you say something or do something about AI or not with your students, even if you do nothing, you're teaching them a lesson. If
Mm.
you're saying absolutely no AI in my classroom, you are teaching them a lesson and you are sending them a message about AI. So I would just take that into consideration. It is such an important topic and skill that everybody will need in the future. So do something.
Great. Then, great. How can we open this dialogue with the AI developers, Jonathan?
Yeah, I can jump in on that. So yeah, going to the back to the do something. So I work a lot of times with teachers to code develop something. So what can I do to make your job better? What can I do to make it more efficient? What can I do to make it more meaningful for your students? And I think having that co-design process with teachers and their students always makes the end product better. So if you don't start with that user in mind, so in this case, our teachers and our students, then you're not going to go anywhere. So it's not going to be useful. It's not going to be used. So I always tell folks like we need educators in the conversation. Don't feel like you don't have anything to offer because you do. Like you know your context better than anyone else. You know your students. And so if you don't see something working out in your school, in your context, that's important information to know. Because as a designer and a developer, um, I need that information and I want to work with teachers to make their lives better. So I think just jumping in there, not being afraid to join the conversation and really like dream big, right? This is an exciting time right now. So think about, what are the possibilities for tomorrow? Don't be limited by today, but what can we do tomorrow?
Great. Then we have these policymakers. So Ryan, can you comment on these?
Yeah, no, I'm lucky enough to work in a district that's very deliberate about this. So at the school level, I just started playing with it and found some other teachers that were. And then my principal gave us the green light, and I made a cohort of 15 people, and I picked people from every department in the school because what I know it works in computer science, but I don't know it works in English or history, even art. So getting more people on board and collaborating and sharing is huge. But on the policy side, our district formed an AI steering committee. And it's probably the best thing that we did. And in that room, we have the major department heads of every department from teaching and learning to our lawyer to our superintendent's office, SPED, multi-language learners. Everyone is there and we have these conversations and we talk about this and we've been very open about it, but very, very deliberate in what we do. So we started off writing policy and we realized that, hey, it's the beginning of the school year and everyone's going to put out a disclosure statement. What would this look like? And so we wrote a sample disclosure statement for teachers who are using AI and are fine with it every day. It's teachers who want unlimited use and teachers that don't want any use at all. And that way we could get ahead of it. But these conversations get tricky policy wise because in the first draft, we had a teacher that was all gung ho about plagiarism. But that's a tricky term to define in regards to AI because theoretically AI is writing its own copy and you could debate that, right? So we just had to be very deliberate. We had everyone at the table and we have a monthly meeting discussing these things. And so we have a very deliberate and slow and nice rollout of all these things. And then we teamed up with Skillstruck in our district and we keep on building on that. And Skillstruck's been great about getting teachers involved. I know School AI is in our state too, and they're trying to get more teachers involved. So they're making the tools that teachers actually want to make. But I think as far as policymakers go, start at the school level and at the district. You need someone to start having these conversations. Otherwise, everyone's going to do their own thing, and everyone's going to be using different tools. And some of these tools are not going to be safe. So we made a committee, and then we actually had a committee that goes through all the tools that teachers want to use and vets them to make sure they're safe for our kids.
Great. Yes. So yeah, let's talk about these ethical considerations that we need to think about. So what are the ethical concerns regarding AI used in education, and how can they be mitigated? Really important question. And Ryan already touched a little bit, but let's start with Jonathan.
Yeah, I'm gonna expand a little bit beyond just ethics. I think that's definitely a first step. But it kind of goes back to what Ryan was talking about earlier too, like safety and student data. So I think a framework that has been helpful for me in my own work, and I think it could apply to school districts, but also like teachers in the classroom too, is what's called the SAFE framework. So this comes out from the EdSafe AI Alliance. And so they break it up into 4 areas. One being safety, another being accountability, another one being fairness and transparency. The other one is being efficacy. So going back to like what Ryan was mentioning earlier, like safety, like what data is being passed back and forth? Like we want to keep students' privacy safe, right? Going to accountability, also going back to what Ryan was mentioned, who's in the room when we're having these discussions, right? Are teachers involved? Do students have a seat at the table? What about parents? What about the special educator? What about community leaders, right? So as we start thinking about policy or AI design or the tools that we're going to use, like who has a seat at the table? And then going back to like fairness, transparency, I think that's what Hazel was getting at earlier. Like, so what are the biases in the system, right? Have they been checked? Are there protocols to mitigate those biases, right? Because you're never going to get rid of biases. Like all the data generated to train AI, right, is generated by human, and humans have inherent biases, right? So we're never going to get rid of them. But what are the steps in place to maybe mitigate them as much as possible, right? And then thinking about efficacy, right? I think this is really an open question right now, especially with all the tools coming out at the moment. Like, how effective are they for students? How effective are they for teachers? And what do we mean by effective? Like, for what purpose? Is it for standardized performance, or is it something more? Like, what does it mean to be creative, right? What does it mean to have that human experience of writing, right? How do you go about assessing that? Like, how do we measure the effectiveness with AI and students teaming together, right? So these are all open questions, but I think the SAFE framework is a nice initial point to think about that and start having some conversations with your team.
Thank you. Can you share that save that link with us? That's great. Ryan, do you have anything to add to this?
Yeah, I think as far as ethics go, the things we're seeing on the ground in the classroom, number one, every teacher is worried about plagiarism and cheating. And a case in point about this kind of snake oil salesman era of AI that we're in right now is there's 1,000,001 AI detectors that you can pay good money for. But the research is out is that none of them work. And if they are being used, they actually unfairly target multi-language learners. And so we find a lot of teachers that say your kid cheated and that's their only evidence. And it creates these awkward conversations with parents, which is why we need to educate teachers. And I love what Jonathan said about bias. Bias is a huge part of it. And also making sure kids don't just blindly trust the AI. As a teacher, we all see kids that they Google something and they just read the summary at the top and they don't actually read the articles. And AI is that times 100. So I actually do activities in my classroom where I have them ask AI a question. I do lectures where I just put a vocab word or a person or a topic on the board and they have to have AI teach them about it. And even with something with a clear right or wrong answer, like what year did Columbus land in America? 1492. And I say, tell the AI it's wrong. And they'll say, oh, I'm sorry. And they'll usually make up an answer. And it shows kids that the AI is actually not their best friend. And they actually need to start vetting these things. So we have to be really deliberate in how we teach students. And there's a lot of great programs out there. that can teach these kids lessons and stuff like that. Skillstruck has lessons that actually walks kids through like bias, credibility, how to write a prompt, how to be safe, not sharing personal information, and then teachers and parents as well. A lot of parents have no clue what this is, and I think we just take it for granted that they're going to learn it. But we need to be at the forefront of these conversations. We have a school in my district that opened up with AI and they started using it. And a lot of tinfoil hat conspiracy theorist parents lost their minds over it until we taught them deliberately. But also, as far as that, the age of assessment is insane. What we've been doing at my school, some of the AI teachers, is we're shifting to more performance assessments. We tell kids, you can use AI all you want, but at some point, you're going to stand on your own 2 feet. Like I help with driver's ed, and theoretically, a kid could cheat through their way through driver's ed. But at some point, they got to be in the car with their feet on the pedals and actually drive. So, what does that look like in history? What does that look like in math? We have a business teacher, like he does that. He says, use AI all you want, but you're going to do a presentation in front of the class. You can't read your slides, and I'm going to ask you as many questions as I want afterwards. So you have to know your stuff. And he catches kids all the time using words that they don't understand or copying and pasting. But one time a kid used the word quantitative shaving in this lecture on supply chain, and the teacher didn't even know what that was. So we asked the kid, and the kids gave a textbook answer along with examples. And the teacher was like, dang, I thought I caught you. And the kid's like, no, AI taught me. So we have to understand that ethically, there's a really fine line between kids using AI to learn and kids using AI to cheat. So we have to make sure that we're not penalizing kids for using AI to learn, but we have to get smarter with our assessments and change how we assess to make sure we're catching the kids who are actually learning versus cheating. Because right now on the ground, we're seeing a lot of kids getting accused of cheating that aren't cheating. They're just learning with the tool.
Thank you. That's great. Then how can we screen for or participate in ensuring AI tools are fair and unbiased, and particularly, for students from diverse background? You talked about the multilingual students, but let's start with Amanda. Do you have some ideas?
Absolutely. So I think if we're teaching students about bias and teaching them to look for this, I think we have to teach them to ask the questions, where does this data come from that's running this AI? Whose perspective might this be missing? Who benefits if I believe this? And asking those hard questions. Just like was mentioned before, AI will make up answers. It will make up sources that don't exist. So we have to, again, teach students that we can't blindly trust. Also, this question reminds me of something that I tell my students, or that I remind myself about my students, rather, and that's this. They can't become what they don't see. So in other words, if we don't teach them or help them realize something about themselves, they can't become that. So in other words, part of our roles as educators is to help students believe about themselves that they're capable of something. So in order for us to help create a more diverse group of individuals who are creating AI, who are responsible for making AI policy and law, we have those people in our classrooms now. And so our role as educators is helping those students believe that they deserve a place at the table, is helping those students believe that they are capable of doing that. And that means making sure that every student has the opportunity to have those lessons and realize that it can be an interest if it's an interest of theirs. Like, how will our students realize their passion for AI if they aren't empowered to see their potential? I guess that's my point. We have the ability to make that change in the future because that change, those change makers are in our classroom today.
Great. Jason, do you want to add to this?
Yeah, certainly. Well, first, I'm kind of torn on this particular question because on the one hand, AI is biased based on the data set that it's collecting, and it collects from millions and millions and millions of sources. And I was reading an article, a research article, that where Gemini portrayed doctors as being predominantly white males, and it had few minorities, it had few women, and it was underrepresented. So the makers of Gemini went in there and tweaked the code to essentially have a more balanced representation. They actually overrepresented minorities and women in medicine when they asked Gemini to draw pictures of a medical professional, but that's better than underrepresenting in a way. We have to remember also that what we input into these chatbots, and these chatbots are what are going to be the biased things mostly. What we input in goes into shaping how that chatbot reacts and quote thinks. So if we teach our students to fact check and correct the AI or the chatbot, theoretically, that's going to feed in and start balancing out this bias that's inherent in the system based on the training sets. It's a very slow, arduous process, but that would be something, one way that we could make it more fair and less biased.
Great. Jonathan, anything?
Yeah, I think it'll be just kind of brief. So I liked what Amanda said earlier about like, the next workforce that will help develop and shape AI is our students, right? And so encourage them to like take on this new role and this new vision for the future. And I think connecting to like Ryan here, go and look at who's on the board, specifically for these tools geared for K-12 education, right? Do teachers have a role in shaping the tool? Like Ryan, I think you're a great example, and you can probably speak to this more than I can. But like, who's on the board? Is that board diverse? Do they have teachers? Do they have community members? Do they have leaders in other areas, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so if you have that diverse team coming, hopefully then you'll have a better product.
Ryan, do you want to add to that a little bit?
No, I think the biggest thing is just if we don't teach kids how to use it, they'll learn it somewhere else, right? When I started using AI right when ChatGPT came out, and I started using it in my classroom, and I actually took a survey at the end of the term to ask kids about AI, and I love this response I got from a kid. He said, "It's a lot harder than it looked like on TikTok." And I think sometimes when it comes to tech, we assume kids just pick it up and run with it. And anyone who's used AI knows how hard it is to write a prompt, how hard it is to do all of this, right? But I also think we fail to understand that we assume kids will just naturally know how to use it and use it responsibly. So I think being as deliberate as possible in teaching your kids how to use it. And like I said, I love, and my kids have fallen in love with it too. I love it when AI is wrong and I get it corrected. Like I get a little like happiness from that. And something like coding, it's really apparent. If a kid's coding and he says, "Why is my code not working?" and it gives them a sample of code to fix their code with, my kids who blindly copy and paste that in without understanding usually end up in a dead end and their code is garbage. And I ask them, "What happened to your code, man? It looked good yesterday." And they're like, "I just did what the AI told me." But I think teaching my kids to realize, hey, the AI is wrong there, but that spurred an idea. Or, hey, I don't like what it's doing there. Let me ask it in a better way. But I think we have to start with the assumption that the AI is wrong and teach our kids that the AI is wrong. It's actually wrong a lot more than I ever would have thought. And my kids who realize that become AI power users because they know to discern. And I think that's something that's missing in a lot of the dialogue today. Is just like, get the kids on there, have them type in a question, and it'll be right. Which is why, like I said with the Columbus example, I love having them say it, you're wrong, and see how it tries to cover for itself. And that opens my kids' eyes so much. So I think being as deliberate as humanly possible and not just blindly trusting that this generation that grew up with iPhones magically knows how to use every tech thing out there.
Great. So we are actually really close to the end, but are there any questions that you want to ask to us? We have amazing panelists today, and if you have any questions, please, you can drop in the chat or you can raise your hand. Any questions? Okay, if you don't have any, then let's have a final comment and let's end the session. Or Jerry, do you have anything to comment?
No, I think that's fine. I just want to share with everyone that we will be having our final EdTrends session for the spring semester next week. And that topic will be on digital storytelling in the classroom. So we welcome anyone who wishes to attend, as always. And I will turn it over to you, Hazel, to do the thank yous and the last comments.
Yeah, last final comment. Let's start with Amanda.
I don't know if I have a final comment. Thanks everyone for sharing your ideas. I learned a lot today.
Okay, great. Jonathan?
Say thank you to Amanda and Ryan for coming today. I definitely learned a lot listening in on the conversation. I always enjoy these panelists and learning from our panelists.
Okay, Jason?
I have to echo what Jonathan said. I have to thank Amanda and Ryan. They gave a great deal of expert information on AI, talking about AI hallucinations, talking about different ways to leverage AI in the classroom. That AI is not always right, that more often than not, it's wrong. So I have to thank both Amanda and Ryan, for agreeing to join the panel.
Mm-hmm. Ryan?
Thanks so much for having me, guys, all the way from Utah. This has been awesome. I would just say, play with it. And I think the next big step, and what I'm seeing in the classroom, what I'm having the most fun doing, the most creative, the most fun thing I'm doing is building custom AI tutors for my students, creating those experiences and resources for them. That's a game changer. And I think that's the next step for education.
Great. Thank you so much for coming, everyone. And if you have any questions, if you want to, create a small community at UAlbany, please email us and we can start from there. So have a good evening. Thank you.